Welcome back to The Deep Dive. I'm your host, and honestly, the internet is undefeated. It really is.
It never sleeps.
It never sleeps. Just when you think the culture war has run out of every possible battlefield, just when you think, every franchise has been strip mined for controversy, we find a new one.
Yeah, it's always a big one.
And this time, we aren't fighting over a comic book movie or a galaxy far, far away or even like a fantasy TV show. We are fighting over Homer.
Yeah, 800 BC has entered the chat.
Right. I mean, we are talking about arguably the foundational text of Western literature, the Odyssey, and specifically the absolute firestorm of rumors swirling around Christopher Nolan's reported adaptation of it.
And you'd think Christopher Nolan, that's a name that inspires confidence.
Usually. A Christopher Nolan movie is a cause for celebration or at least intense confusion regarding audio mixing and, timelines. But this time, it's pure, unadulterated rage.
It is a fascinating collision of forces, really. You have the auteur theory of Hollywood, this idea that the director is like a god king whose vision is absolute crashing headfirst into what we might call the heritage theory of fandom.
Okay, what's that?
Which says that the audience and the source material, they're the actual owners of the story. The director is just a steward, a caretaker.
And the catalyst for this massive explosion, a tweet, because it is always.
Specifically, a tweet by the commentary YouTuber and content creator known as That Star Wars Girl, or Anna.
We've covered her work before.
We have.
Oh.
And she dropped a commentary video that effectively lit the fuse on this just massive conversation about casting, historical accuracy, the biology of Greek gods.
The biology of Greek gods. I love that we're actually going to get there.
Oh, we are. And the aerodynamics of wooden horses.
Because this isn't just about who got cast right. This is deep lore. So our mission today is to sift through this video source material. We aren't here to pick a side in the flame war. That's for the comment sections. But we need to understand the architecture of her argument.
Right. What's the logic behind it?
Exactly. Why did this specific critique resonate with why did Elon Musk need to chime in? And why on earth are we talking about square?
It's a wild ride. We have accusations of race swapping, a granular deconstruction of set design that rivals an engineering lecture, and a theory about Twitter verification that involves a mandatory IQ test.
Incredible. Okay, let's get into the spark. The tweet heard round the world. What exactly did Anna say that triggered what feels like a week-long internet melt?
So, to set the stage, the context is a rumor. And we should stress very heavily that this is currently a rumor, though the source treats it as a credible threat.
Okay, a very important caveat.
The rumor is that Lupita Nyong'o has been cast as Helen of Troy in Nolan's upcoming film.
Okay, let's just pause. Lupita Nyong'o, Academy Award winner, 12 Years a Slave, Black Panther. I mean, objectively, by any metric of the acting profession, she is a powerhouse.
Oh, undeniably. A tier 1 talent. There's no debate there. But Anna's contention, and this is so crucial to understanding her video, it isn't about acting ability. She never once claims Lupita is a bad actress.
So it's not a talent issue for her?
Not at all. Her argument is entirely about fidelity to the text. Her tweet was a visual juxtaposition. On one side, you have the rumor, a picture of Lupita. On the other, she reposted a text description from her friend, Chrissy Mayer, detailing the traditional Helen of Troy.
And when you say traditional, are we talking about just a general vibe, or is it like really specific?
Oh, it's very specific. She pulls directly from the classical epithets found in the source texts, the poems themselves.
Okay.
We're talking descriptors like white-armed, fair-haired, and golden curls. The description emphasizes a fair complexion and blue-green eye. It even lists idolized Greek proportions, which implies, a very specific classical European standard of beauty.
White-armed is a very Homeric phrase. It's used repeatedly in the Iliad and the Odyssey to describe Hera, Helen, and other noble women. It's not just a casual adjective, it's like a defining trait in the poetry.
That's it, exactly. And for Anna, that's the foundation of her argument. The text says A, the casting says B, and in her view, A and B are mutually exclusive.
There's no middle ground.
None. She even mentions in her video that she made a little play on words in the original tweet regarding the casting, a bit of dark humor that she personally felt was clever and amusing.
But I'm guessing not everyone saw it that way.
Well, it obviously inflamed the response from those who saw it as mean-spirited or, racist. But for her, it's just part of the critique.
So for her, this is a binary issue. It's not about interpretation. It's about a direct contradiction.
Precisely. She argues that Lupita's physical appearance contradicts every single traditional descriptor of the character. She frames it as a bastardization.
Oof, that's a heavy word. Bastardization.
She uses it deliberately. She argues that this isn't just a casting choice. She calls it a butchering of Greek culture. She views it as an act of erasure.
Right.
And this is where the conversation usually just derails. People scream racism, and the other side screams woke mind virus, and nobody listens to each other. But Anna anticipates this. She knows exactly what's coming.
She knows the R word is about to be thrown at her.
Oh, she calls it the shield of racism. She argues that Hollywood and the defenders of these casting choices, they use the accusation of racism as a deflector shield.
A tactical move.
Absolutely, a tactical move. If you complain about historical inaccuracy, you're a bigot. If you complain about mythological inconsistency, you're a bigot. She wants to strip that shield away and say, no, look at the text. My argument is about the text and only the text.
But here's the thing, and I want to push back on this a little, or at least probe it. Helen of Troy is a mythological figure. She's the daughter of Zeus, for crying out loud.
Right.
Does historical accuracy even apply to a demigod who, as you mentioned, supposedly hatched from an...
And that is the million-dollar question in adaptation studies, isn't it? But Anna addresses this by pivoting. She pivots from historical accuracy to cultural accuracy.
Okay, what's the distinction for her?
She argues that Greek mythology is the specific heritage of Greek people. She says, and this is a direct quote, Greeks are real people.
As opposed to, what? Fictional characters from a generic fantasy world?
Exactly, as opposed to generic fantasy tropes. She feels there is a trend, especially on social media, to deconstruct Greek identity, to claim Greeks weren't white or that modern concepts of race don't apply to them.
Right, the antiquity was a racial paradise argument.
Yes, and in doing so, she believes it effectively erases their distinctiveness. So she views the casting of a Kenyan-Mexican actress as Helen not as inclusion, but as replacement.
So for her, it's a zero-sum game.
It is. She argues that if you erase the visual identity of a culture's mythology, you are, in effect, erasing the culture itself.
She uses some analogies to drive this home, right? The hypocrisy test, I think she called it.
This is her primary rhetorical device in the video, and it's one that resonates very, very strongly with her audience. She asks the listener to just visualize the reverse scenario. It's the classic flip.
Okay, lay it out for me. What's the first?
She asks, would the public accept a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman playing Mulan?
I mean, no. I can hear the internet screaming. Just the thought of that, the outrage would be astronomical, and honestly, for good reason.
Correct, and that is her point.
Yeah.
She argues that if a white woman played Mulan, everyone left, right, and center would agree it looks wrong. Stick out like a sore thumb is the phrase she uses.
It would break the immersion.
Totally. You wouldn't be watching the story of Mulan. You'd be watching a weird, kind of offensive Hollywood casting mistake.
And she applies that same logic to African mythology.
Yeah. She mentions Black Panther, or stories from African folklore. She argues that if a white person were cast as a character in a story rooted in African mythology, there would be outrage. And this is an important part of her argument. She says that outrage would be justified.
Ah, that's an important distinction. So she's not saying, I want to be able to do to you what you did to me. She's saying, it's wrong when you do it, and it's also wrong when we do it.
Exactly. She is pleading for a universal standard of consistency. Her conclusion is that a mismatch is a mismatch, regardless of which race is being swapped. To her, casting Lupita as Helen is just as absurd, just as immersion-breaking as casting Scarlett Johansson as Mulan.
So she's trying to build a logical case. If A is wrong, then B must also. She's appealing to a sense of fairness.
It's a plea for consistency in a world she feels has become completely hypocritical. She feels that there is a double standard where, European or Greek culture can be deconstructed, changed, and updated, but other cultures must be preserved in amber, completely untouchable.
Okay, so what does she think is driving this? Why does she think Christopher Nolan, a man known for being so meticulous, so detail-oriented, is doing? Is it just to make people mad?
She blames the DEI checklist.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right. She claims that Hollywood is essentially held hostage by these checklists. The argument she presents is that if a director doesn't check specific diversity boxes, percentages of cast, crew, story elements, their film isn't eligible for major awards, like the Oscars.
Ah, so she thinks Nolan is compromising his artistic vision for a shot at a golden statue.
That is her explicit accusation. She says it's not Lupita's fault. She's a great actress. She accepted a job and is a fantastic opportunity to work with Nolan. Who would say no?
Of course.
The blame, in her eyes, lies squarely with Nolan and the studio system for pushing an agenda over story accuracy. She believes Nolan cares more about the Academy Awards than he does about the integrity of the Odyssey.
That is a harsh critique for a director who is usually seen as this, uncompromising auteur, the guy who blew up a real 747 for Tenet.
It is. And we'll definitely get to her full critique of Nolan's career in a bit, because she had some very hot takes there. But first, we have to talk about the egg.
The egg.
The egg.
Okay, you've teased this twice now. Let's unpack. Why are we talking about poultry products in the middle of a Hollywood casting?
Well, this connects to a secondary rumor she discusses in the video. There's a whisper that Lupita Nyong'o might be playing two roles.
Two roles?
Not just Helen of Troy, but also her sister, Clytemnestra.
Oh, wow. A double role. Like the Parent Trap goes to Sparta. That's ambitious.
It is. And to explain why this might be the case, why this rumor even exists, the source dives into what she calls Greek Mythology 101.
Okay.
She explains the origin story of Helen and Clytemnestra. And this is where she really shows she knows her stuff, or at least the specific, more esoteric version of the myth she prefers.
And this is where the egg comes in?
This is where the egg comes in. She details a specific version of the myth of Leda and the swan, Zeus in the form of a swan.
Classic Zeus. Never just shows up as a guy. Always has to be a swan or a bull or a shower of...
Classic Zeus. He impregnates their mother, whom the source refers to just as Mama, Leda, and the result is that she lays an egg.
She lays an egg. A human woman lays an egg.
According to the myth she's citing, yes, an egg. Or maybe two eggs, the myths vary. But from this egg, or eggs, hatch Helen, Clytemnestra, and their brothers, the Gemini Castor and Pollux.
So they are. Hatchling. The most famous twins in history are literally hatched.
In a manner of speaking, yes. And her point in bringing up this deep cut is to say, look, if they all hatched from the same egg, it makes mythological sense that they would look identical. Therefore, having one actress play both sisters actually has a mythological basis. She's sort of reverse engineering a justification for the rumor.
That is actually a pretty nerdy deep cut of mythology to bring up to justify a camera. It's almost like she's trying to help the movie make sense, even while she fundamentally disagrees with the casting itself.
It shows she's engaged with the lore on a deep level. She's not just reacting to a headline. She's trying to map the rumors onto the mythology she loves. She's basically saying, okay, the twin thing, that makes sense because of the egg. But the casting of the twin thing doesn't make sense because of the descriptions in the text.
But wait, I've definitely heard people say, and she must have heard this too, that Helen isn't even in the Odyssey, that she's an Iliad character. The Iliad is the war, the Odyssey is the journey home, so who cares?
This is a major point of contention for her. There is a counter-argument floating all over the internet that says, why do you care?
Yeah.
Helen isn't in this book. You're getting mad about what's essentially a cameo.
And how does she respond to that?
With absolute disdain. She treats this objection as a litmus test for literacy. She practically challenges their ability to read. She says it proves they've never actually opened the book.
Shot fired.
Big time. She lays out the narrative evidence very clearly. In the Odyssey, specifically in Book 4, Telemachus, Odysseus' son, is out searching for news of his father. He travels to Sparta. Right. And who does he find in the court of Sparta?
Let me guess. Menelaus and his now reconciled wife, Helen.
Exact. Menelaus has taken Helen back after the Trojan War. She is there. She is present. She has lines. She discusses the war and Odysseus with Telemachus. It's actually a very famous scene where she drugs their wine with something called nepenthe to stop them all from crying about the past.
So she's basically saying, I read the book, you didn't sit down.
Essentially, yes. She argues that Helen's presence is a crucial part of the text. Helen provides exposition. She helps characterize Odysseus from her own perspective. She reflects on the immense carnage caused by her own abduction. To dismiss her importance is just ignorant, or as she calls it, coping.
It's clear she feels a real sense of ownership, genuinely loves the Odyssey.
She calls it one of the most beloved stories of all time. And that passion is what fuels her anger. She feels that people pretending to be cultured are just Googling things to win an argument online, where she knows the material inside and out. She feels like the tourists are trying to kick out the residents.
Okay, so we've established she thinks the casting is wrong, the mythology is being ignored, and the critics are uneducated. But she also goes after the man himself, Christopher Nolan.
And here's where it gets really, really interesting. Because you usually hear Nolan described in, hushed, reverent tone, a genius, a visionary.
The guy who made The Dark Knight, Inception, Oppenheimer, the man is a titan of...
The source has a slightly different verdict. She calls him the most overrated director of art.
Wow, that is a scorching hot take.
She does not hold back one bit. She describes Tenet as a dumpster fire.
I mean, look, Tenet was confusing, sure. I still don't know if I've watched it forward or backward. But a dumpster fire, that's harsh.
In her view, yes. And she even goes after Interstellar, which is a beloved film for many people.
It is.
She argues that Interstellar is only good because of the act, Matthew McConaughey, Hathaway, and the incredible special effects team. She says it had nothing to do with Nolan's original story.
So she views him as more of a technical manager, not a great storyteller.
That's it, exactly. She claims he's just good at hiring talented people, but lacks creative integrity himself. She claims he cares about big special effects and winning awards, not about integrity.
She has another line, something about money.
Yes, she says he's allergic to money.
Allergic to money? What does she mean by that?
It implies that there is a massive market for accurate adaptations that Hollywood is willfully ignoring. She believes that if Nolan just made the movie the way it's supposed to be made, without the DEI checklist or the weird creative choices, it would be a guaranteed massive success.
But by ignoring the fans, he's actively choosing to make less money and therefore dooming film.
And it's not just the Helen casting she hates, right? It seems like she has a bone to pick with the whole rumored cast list.
It's a laundry list of complaints. She thinks Matt Damon as Odysseus is horrible casting. casting.
Matt Damon, I can kind of see that. He's very modern. It's hard to imagine Jason Bourne in a toga commanding a ship through the ages. And she discusses Anne Hathaway as Penelope. Now, she clarifies that she likes Anne Hathaway as an actress, but deems her the wrong fit for the role. She compares it to Hathaway's role as Catwoman. Great actress, wrong role.
So it's a vibe thing.
It's a vibe thing. She wants the ancient world to feel ancient, not like a Hollywood red carpet and costume. She wants to be fully immersed.
And that desire for immersion leads to another critique, doesn't it, about the soldiers?
Yes, about the diversity in the rank. She criticizes the inclusion of Asian and Black actors portrayed as soldiers fighting in the Trojan War.
Let me guess. Historical.
In her view, yes. She argues that for that specific setting and time period, a multiracial Achaean army just breaks the reality of the world. She says if that were real, it would have been in the book, but it's not. She argues it's an anachronism, like putting a digital wristwatch on Achilles.
It all comes back to that sore thumb theory. Anything that reminds her she's watching a 2024 Hollywood movie instead of a story from ancient Greece is a failure.
Correct. And nothing, absolutely nothing, illustrates this failure more to her than the Trojan horse itself.
Oh, yes. The Trojan horse disaster. I saw her comments on this. She calls it a square wheel.
Yes. She describes the rumored design of the Trojan horse in the film as having a square wheel approach. She's completely bewildered by it. She says, "You're not reinventing the wheel. Making a square wheel is not going to fix things."
I'm trying to visualize this. Is it literally a square wheel, or is that a metaphor?
It's a metaphor for design that tries to be different just for the sake of being different, but ends up being functionally useful. But she has very specific physical complaints about the actual design she's seen. Her main issue is the height.
The height of the horse?
The height of the horse's belly off the ground. She points out that the design sits way, way too low to the ground.
And why does that matter?
Tactics, my friend. Basic military tactics. The whole point of the Trojan horse is to hide soldiers inside it, get it into the city, and have them jump out at night, undetected.
Oh, right. The ultimate stealth.
She argues that unlike the traditional four-legged design, which elevates the soldiers high above the ground, this low rider version allows enemies to simply walk up and stab the soldiers hiding inside from the bottom.
Okay, that is a pretty funny image. Just a line of Trojan soldiers getting poked in the butt with spears because the horse is too low to the ground.
She specifically mentions that. She says unless the Greeks are going to get chairs and ladders to climb up, the traditional design keeps them safe. But this Nolan design, she says you can just walk up and stab up into the belly. It turns the ultimate stealth weapon into a piñata.
It does seem like a massive oversight for a genius strategist like Odysseus. Hey guys, for my master plan, let's build a hiding spot that is easily accessible from the ground for anyone with a pointy stick.
And she says there's a specific scene previewed from the film that confirms this vulnerability. Apparently, a soldier inside actually gets stabbed from below.
So the movie acknowledges its own flawed design.
It depicts the consequence of the flaw, yes. But then she describes what happens next. And this is where she really loses it over the physics of the scene.
What happens?
So a Greek soldier inside gets stabbed from below. Another soldier inside, presumably Odysseus or a leader, takes a cloth and wipes the blood off the enemy's sword.
While the sword is still in the guy, or just the blade came through the floor.
The blade has pierced the wooden floor of the horse. A soldier inside then wipes the blood off it. And the source's critique is all about the sensory details here. She says, and I quote, "You would feel the pressure of someone wiping a sword you were holding."
Oh, I see. If I'm the Trojan guard outside holding the sword and I've just stabbed it into a giant wooden horse and suddenly I feel friction like someone is cleaning my blade for me, I'm going to know something is up.
Exactly. You'd know someone was inside. She calls the physics and the reaction depicted stupid. She says anyone who has ever held a tool or a broom or anything would know that doesn't work. It shatters her suspension of disbelief entirely. She's analyzing the tactical integrity of the props.
It's fascinating how she zooms in on these tiny details. A blood wipe, the height of a wheel. To her, these aren't just nitpicks. They are symptoms of a larger disease. They're evidence that the filmmakers just don't care about making it feel real.
It's the death of 1,000 cuts, or in this case, the death of 1,000 stabs from beneath a low-riding horse. Each inaccuracy piles up to create a picture of a director who is overrated and a production that is doomed.
So we've got the casting, the mythology, the director, and the set design, but we have to talk about the environment this conversation has happened, the town square, whatever.
Or X, as it is now. But yes, the digital battlefield where all this goes down.
She mentions that this discourse has been going on for a week straight, and she paints a pretty chaotic picture of the response she got.
She describes the defenders of the casting as coping and seething.
Coping and seething. That is classic internet parlance for irrational anger.
Right. She views the backlash to her tweet not as valid disagreement, but as purely emotional outburst. She claims people are screaming insults and profanity at her constantly. She sees herself as the rational actor in a sea of madness.
And she has a theory about who some of these people are, right? In her mind, this isn't just people disagreeing. She thinks many of them aren't even real.
This brings us back to Elon Musk's changes to the platform. She specifically discusses the new location features on posts.
Ah, this is the famous bot.
Yeah. She claims that because Elon added these location features, she can see that many of the conflicting accounts, the ones attacking her with insult, are actually bots coming from India.
So she thinks the outrage against her isn't even organic, it's manufactured.
She suspects a significant portion is artificial. She says in the video she finds it hilarious that she can now see these bots. It reinforces her belief that the real thinking audience agrees with her, and that the opposition is manufactured, possibly by studios or PR firms, to protect the movie.
It's a very modern conspiracy. My haters are in.
And speaking of a thinking audience, she has a proposal for a new Twitter feature that is, well, it's certainly unique.
The IQ test.
The IQ test.
I love this. Okay, tell me about the Twitter IQ test.
She proposes that Twitter or X should require an IQ test before you can even get into your account, a literal barrier to entry based on intelligence.
Wow, that would certainly change the user base.
And not just that, she wants your verification checkmark color to change based on your IQ bracket.
Yeah, wait. So if you have like a red check, everyone knows you're not the sharpest tool in the shed.
Exactly. She thinks it would be absolutely hilarious. Her theory is that the people screaming racism at her would all have the lowest ranking checkmark. She uses this to position herself as the rational, intelligent observer against a mob of low IQ reactors.
She even brings Forrest Gump into this, which is just an incredible comparison.
She does. She compares the simplicity of her argument to Forrest Gump. She says the concept of casting accuracy is so simple, even Forrest Gump could understand.
I am not a smart man, but I know what cast.
She jokes that Forrest Gump would have an extremely high IQ compared to the people on Twitter today. She feels like she's explaining basic shapes to toddlers. That's the level of frustration she has with the online discourse. She feels the world has gone crazy, and she's the only one pointing out that the emperor, or in this case Helen, has the wrong skin color.
It really highlights the divide.
Yeah.
She sees herself as standing on the side of logic, history, and Forrest Gump common sense, while the other side is just emotion, bots, and agenda.
And that's why she thinks the viral nature of her tweet matters so much. The 13 million views, the 22,000 likes. To her, these aren't just vanity metrics. They are proof. Proof that the silent majority agrees with her. Proof that people are genuinely upset about the disrespect shown to the Odyssey.
And then the ultimate validation arrived, Elon Musk himself.
And Elon, the final boss of Twitter.
This is the moment the story went from film Twitter drama to global. This is what got everyone's attention.
Right. Anna mentions that Elon Musk replied to a retweet of her post, and he agreed with the sentiment that Christopher Nolan has lost his integrity.
That is huge. You have the owner of the platform, one of the most famous people in the world, boosting your argument.
And Anna specifically and strategically notes that Elon is African-born. She uses his identity to bolster her defense against the racism accusation.
I see. The logic being, how can this be racist if an African man agrees?
Precisely. She argues that having an African man call the casting shit, her word, quoting him, legitimizes her critique. It signals to her that this isn't a racial issue, but a common sense issue that transcends race.
It's a powerful ally to have in a culture war, that's for sure.
It connects her entire argument back to the town square debate. Who controls the narrative? Who decides what is true? She feels that with Elon on her side, she has won the moral and intellectual argument hands down.
So let's zoom out. What does this all mean for us, for you listening? We've unpacked the source's grievances, we've looked at the mythology of the egg, the physics of the horse, casting of the demi.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it raises a really important question about adaptation. When you adapt a story that is thousands of years old, who owns it? Does it belong to the culture that created it? Does it belong to the director reinterpreting it? Or does it belong to the fans who have visualized it a certain way for decades?
The source clearly passionately believes it belongs to the culture and
she believes that deviating from that text is a moral fail, a fundamental loss of integrity.
It's fascinating because it challenges the whole idea of the auteur. We usually think, let Christopher Nolan do whatever he wants, he's the artist, it's his vision. But she's saying, no, the story is bigger than the artist.
Exactly. She's saying that even a director as big as Nolan isn't immune to criticism if he violates the core tenets of the source material. She predicts that if he ignores this massive backlash, the movie is doomed.
Doomed. That's a strong prediction. Do you think it holds water? Can a Twitter storm actually sink a Christopher Nolan battleship? He seems
That is the big question. You know, The Little Mermaid faced similar backlash and underperformed relative to expectation key markets. But Nolan is a different beast. Oppenheimer defied all commercial expectations.
True.
But Anna's point is that By alienating the core audience who actually cares about the mythology, the people who buy the tickets for opening night, he is starting the race with a flat tire, or I guess a square wheel.
A square wheel on a lowrider horse.
Exactly. It really begs the question for you to think about. Is the era of the auteur director, the guy who could do no wrong ending? Are we entering an era where the audience, armed with Twitter and source tech, holds the lead?
And if so, is that a good thing for art? Or does it ultimately stifle creativity and new...
That is the tension. If the audience demands strict adherence to their version of the text, do we lose the ability to reinterpret these classics for a new generation? But if directors completely ignore the roots of the story, do we lose the very meaning that made them classics in the first place? It's a tension that isn't going away anytime.
Well, we'll let you chew on that. Whether you're Team Nolan, Team Anna, or just Team Zeus stop turning into birds, this is going to be a movie release to watch.
A true Odyssey in it.
Oh, I see what you did there. Huge thanks to the source material from that Star Wars girl for giving us this incredible rabbit hole to dive down. It was a fascinating intersection of myth, media, and Musk.
Always a pleasure to analyze the chaos.
And to you, listening, keep your eyes on the horizon. And maybe check the height of your Trojan horse before you climb. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. See you next